Hello and welcome to this episode of The Dig. My name is Jamie and I'm your host. Today we're going to be talking about nerves. But before we get started, I want to remind you that my sponsor is My Little Athlete, where you can find volleyball apparel and team gifts and anything that you might need this volleyball season. So go to mylittleathlete.biz to check us out. Now, we're going to talk about nerves. So, regardless of how you or why you might get nervous, there are certain things that you can do to hopefully help that a little bit. So whether you're nervous for individual performance, maybe you get really nervous when you go back to serve, or maybe you're nervous about the outcome of a game. Maybe it's a big game and a lot of energy and excitement is fueling you, but it might be very nerve-wracking. So things that you can do. The first thing you can do is be as prepared as you can possibly be. That way, when you go into the game, you know, knowledge is power. So you know maybe hopefully something about the team you're going to play, or if it's a skill thing and you get nervous when you go back to serve. If you have taken a lot of time and put in a lot of preparation for that, then you're going to be a lot more confident in it and it's not going to affect you as much. The nerves won't. You may still feel a little bit nervous, but if you've hit that serve 10 out of 10 times in practice, then you're going to feel a lot better about it when you go back to serve in a game. Now, you might still have nerves, and that's okay. And really, nerves aren't a bad thing. It's all about how you handle them. But being prepared is really going to help you out. And it'll take a little bit of the edge off the nerves. Like I said, you're still going to have them, but you can kind of make them under control if you've put in a lot of preparation. So if you are doing a skill, so it's an individual thing that you're nervous about, you can go through the steps that you have predetermined in practice. So if you're serving and you always forget to drag your toe or something, you would just kind of walk yourself through that on your way back to the serving line and thinking, okay, I have to, drag my toe and everything will be just fine. If it's a match that you're really nervous about, remind yourself about things about the other team or about your own team. So maybe you remind yourself, like, I'm a high school JV player, and you know what? I'm playing against a high school JV team. They're not perfect, and they're going to make some mistakes too. And so, this game that we're about to play, there's going to be mistakes made on both sides. So I shouldn't be completely nervous. I should no, I am already prepared. I know that there are going to be mistakes that happen on both sides, and it's, a next play mentality or whatever it is that you and your coach have talked about. A lot of coaches will talk about next play, next play, next play. You always move on to the next play. And so if you can remind yourself about some of those things leading up to the match, then that's going to help take away some of the nerves. Other things that you can do are, well, for me, I actually take my nerves and put them into energy. I don't ever even think of myself as nervous. I have always thought of it as energy, and it is really nerves. It's the same sort of feeling, but I've kind of trained my mind, even at a young age, I trained my mind to think of it as excitement. When I started to feel the nerves, I knew something exciting was going to happen, and I was about to be able to compete, which is something that I absolutely love. And if you can do that, if you can start to mentally associate the feeling of the nerves, the physical feeling of the nerves, if you can equate that in your head to something more positive, then it's really going to change your outlook on what you're about to do. That's actually probably one of the biggest things that I can encourage you to do, is find a way to change the feeling, the physical feeling that you get in your stomach where you're nervous and you're starting to sweat and all those feelings of nerves, and start to mentally make the change that you think of that as excitement and adrenaline and all this positive energy that you're going to be able to release once the game gets started. And that's going to do a lot for you, because now all of a sudden it's not nerves you're dealing with, it's energy that you're just releasing into the game. And that's, like I said, that's a big thing. It's hard to do, but if you can do it, you're going to be better off for it. Other things, you can always visualize. And when you do visualize, you need to visualize yourself being successful. You need to visualize yourself with proper form and technique. You need to visualize yourself doing things properly. So if you are kind of inconsistent with your hitting, make sure you're really only thinking about the good hits and what they feel like. Or, if you're a setter, you're really feeling the set. You're trying to get an idea in your head about what a good set feels like. So visualization is a good way to start to calm some of your nerves. If you can take control of the situation in your head, then that's where nerves come from. It's a feeling you have. So other things, let's see. Breathing, a good thing to do before you go back to serve. Take a deep breath, inhale, big exhale. That will, that's a physical way to handle nerves before the match. Take some time, 5 deep breaths in, 5 big releases out. Again, it's a physical way to handle the nerves. None of these are going to get rid of them completely, but we're talking about just management techniques of nerves. The last thing that I'm going to mention, I'll mention 2 more. Remind yourself that there's really only 2 outcomes to any situation. There's a negative and a positive. You should spend a couple minutes telling yourself the worst thing that's going to happen. If you go back and you miss your serve, you go back and you miss your serve on game point, kind of a big deal, right? It really kind of makes you feel like crap. The worst thing that would happen, it's really not that bad. At the end of the day, we're talking about a game. Your overall experience of the season will be the same. And as much as that might suck, and you shouldn't spend much time dwelling on that, you should remind yourself that we're not talking about a death in the family. We're not talking about really awful things here. We're talking about a game where, you feel kind of bad. So, you should remind yourself of that. Worst thing that is going to happen isn't going to be the end of the world. And then the last thing is to remind yourself that everybody feels that way. Everybody that you play with and you play against, there's going to be people on both teams that are just as nervous as you. There's going to be people in the stands that are watching you, and they're not thinking, oh man, I hope, she does well. They're thinking, oh man, I couldn't do that. I couldn't even be out there. And so just having the guts to be out there, even though you're nervous, you're already further along than some people. So those are just a few of the management techniques for nerves. Really walking through it, in your own head, start what's the worst that's going to happen, and then move on positively from there. Okay. But if that's the worst, then that's not that bad. And I can handle this, I can handle it through visualizing positive things, breathing when I'm really starting to feel the physical effects, and then changing your mentality to start saying, okay, this is actually a positive feeling. It feels like nerves, but that feeling is actually a positive thing, and I'm going to use this energy for good and not evil. So thank you for watching this episode. I really appreciate it. All of the times that you watch and that you download, it all gets added up into a little thing, and I know how many people are watching, and that sort of stuff helps my business a lot. And so just by you sitting here and taking 10 minutes out of your day to watch or listen, you might be watching it on YouTube or listening to a podcast or whatever, but every single download makes a big difference in my business. So thank you for that very, very much, and I will see you again next time. Bye.